Hey gamers, I am the Bella Gamer, and today I'm going to have a GM tips section for creating your own interesting monsters for players to face. Now, creating creatures are hard and they take a lot of work, so as a GM, only take part in doing this if you have a particular theme or if you have a particular atmosphere you're trying to create for your players that the monsters and whatever monster manual you're using can't fill in for. If you're doing undead, there's plenty of zombies and skeletons, I guarantee. If you're doing, some dungeon crawling, if you're doing something, there's plenty of stuff for that. But sometimes there's a certain feel or there's a certain theme you want to fill in that the monsters aren't necessarily doing. And so here are some tips that I've used to make my monsters more interesting. First and foremost, when you're trying to create a creature for your players to play, don't just do it just to give them something different to go up against. Because players are more interested in the story and items they're getting than the actual creatures they're facing. Unless it's a boss creature, which boss creatures should almost always be created in some fashion, form or fashion. Normal enemies should just be normal enemies. You shouldn't spend your time and effort on creating a bunch of different ones when you can just tweak some stats and you don't even have to write it up. You can just be like, okay, mentally, I know I want these creatures to do a little bit less damage, but they also are going to poison the players. Something like that. It doesn't need to be super complicated. But if you have a particular creature you are creating, something you can do is first look at some of the abilities in the game, but think of an ability that isn't in the game that you really want to create. This is the time that when creating a monster is really important, or creating a enemy is really important, because the abilities in the books when they have their monster creation sections are general and they're meant for to be used with whatever kind of creatures by that game standards, but they don't necessarily create a theme because a lot of the abilities in the game are already being used. You'll find very rare books that have abilities or traits for monsters that aren't being used by another monster altogether. One of my most famous creature creations were blood spirits. Yeah, blood spirits, I think they were called. I honestly don't remember. It's been a while. But what they were is they were a spirit that infected a corpse, and when the corpse reanimated, it became more like a ghoul. Doesn't sound like a lot too different than like normal ghouls. But what happened is then the ghoul would constantly consume corpses and fresh kills and get blood. And as they would consume blood, they'd become bigger and bigger and bigger. And these creatures also oozed blood from their pores. The amount of blood they lost depended on how much they consumed. So bigger ones would lose more blood than the smaller ones. This created an interesting theme for the characters, and it kind of created, okay, here's these ghouls, but what are they doing? Like, why are they bleeding from their pores? They created a mystery for the players. Otherwise, they had pretty standard ghoul-like abilities. Also, what I did was that as they progressed through the town, during the section where the creatures were showing up, more spirits would be attracted as more bodies were being found. If a ghoul didn't consume a body completely, that would be another corpse available for the blood spirits. Also, I made it, and I don't know if I would do it again, but I made it so that, one of the. Oh, no, I remember what I did now. What happened was some of the bodies in the morgue that were found that weren't completely consumed were stolen, and there was blood on the ground everywhere. Everyone thought it was the ghoul that took it, so everyone went and tried to search around to find it, but they really couldn't. They did run into one of the ghouls, and they ended up destroying it on a roof, but they still weren't able to find the bodies. And then more ghouls came, and then more ghouls came, and so they thought it was some kind of zombie animation. What it was in the end was that a child was being possessed by a demon, and he was summoning these blood spirits to infect corpses, and so he actually went out as a child and stole the bodies. But the players had no idea, and so when the reveal came, which was during one of the most climactic scenes, and the kid suddenly started like levitating and speaking demonically. The players were completely thrown off, and it was really interesting. Also, an interesting aspect of these blood spirits I made was that once they consumed enough blood, they kind of transitioned into a secondary stage. They became a lot easier to hit, but they had a massive amount of health, so the players had to whittle it down rather than just try to kill it like a normal ghoul. Not only that, but on top of it, they became more monster like. They got longer claws. Also, when they lost half health, they actually exploded into like coagulated blood shards that damaged everyone in the area around it. So I made a creature that was kind of a increase from the ghoul, and then it transitioned into a different kind of blood gorged creature that the players had to fight, and it was completely different. I made the campaign for that section anyway really interesting for the players, and it gave an interesting creature that I can use in future campaigns. So when you create your creatures for whatever game, try to fill a theme, try to fill a ability you think is interesting. You know, for instance, the players are in this forest and they kill like this plant, and it explodes into a small cloud that does a very low amount of like poison, But what happens is then they run into a section where there's more of these plants. And when multiple plants go off, your resistance gets lower and lower and lower for every one that goes off until the players eventually get poisoned or paralyzed or whatever. You know, Interesting ideas to fit certain sections of a game that normal creatures just cannot fill. If you guys have any ideas on any creatures, please put them down in the comments below. I would love to hear any interesting concepts or ideas for monsters. If you would like some help on your campaigns, please leave me a message or go ahead and comment below and someone else might help you. Ciao for now, gamers. Good luck with your whatever monsters you create, and I actually hope to hear from them.